every single one of us that are alive on this planet at this time are alive in one of the most pivotal moments in humanity's history. This is why I wanted to return. I wanted to be part of this great shift, but it's not easy. There's a governmental economic system. Those are entwined. There's supposed to be this separation of state and other, but there isn't. Okay. All of these facades and false narratives that have been created, that have been holding us like, I can't see, are finally being stripped away.
What are some of the good things that you see coming up for our future?
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my guest, Maria-Lupita Gurule. Hello, Maria-Lupita.
Hi, Heather. So good to see you again.
Oh, it's so great to see you. I was riveted when you were here the last time and you shared your near-death experience. For those of you watching, this is a whole separate episode. We're going to talk about the future, but at some point you will want to go back and listen to Maria-Lupita's fascinating near-death experience. So I will have links to that in the description, but you can stay right here because, so many people, Maria-Lupita, are talking about this shift that is taking place in society. And the reason that I have invited you on and others is because I've just heard so many of you talking about it. So it's not just sort of a one-off. So first of all, very briefly, because I think people have a sense now, but just very briefly, what is this shift that people are referring to?
Thank you so much. I love the question. Okay, so I tend to go all over the place, so I promise it all makes sense and comes together. But the very way that I want to begin to describe it is that every single one of us that are alive on this planet at this time are alive in one of the most pivotal moments in humanity's history. We are truly becoming a new enlightened sense of humanity. So we're becoming what I'm calling and I believe many others are this Homo luminous species. What I've come to understand is that we were a being created to hold this most sacred spark of life, this life spark. I call it the God spark. Interchangeably, it's like this inner soul piece. And that we're meant to connect with this greater, bigger energy that's on the planet at this time. So there has been like many other prophecies and preordained times and scriptures that talk about this particular time. And it's like this coming of this new energy, this new frequency that's available on the planet. Now that's literal in the sense of what is happening with the cosmic energy. We literally have just entered or into a 4.4 billion year alignment, that's also referred to in the Kali Yuga. But where instead of this being like this other golden age, it is like we are embarking on this like diamond age. It is something that we have not seen like it on humanity before. I just saw an orb fly through your space, by the way.
Actually, what you're seeing is dust. I have a lot of dust in my house, I think. I would love to think it's orbs, but I have a feeling it's dust.
Okay, well, I just caught my eye. Okay, so back to focus. Okay. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. So this time on this planet is most critical because we are truly entering into a time when we are really questioning, and we always have in history of humanity, of who are we? Why are we here? What's this all about? And it's not all about our suffering, okay? That's not why we've chosen to be here. It is that there is suffering on the planet. So many of us have experienced it, but we're here to overcome it. Like my NDE did not take away those experiences. I had to learn a way through it by learning tools and how to manage and how to feel better, how to seek, how to feel more connected, rather than feeling victimized by life, feeling, okay, how do I tap into something else? It's a whole skill set. It's a whole, way of living and being that we are meant to become on this planet. So what is this big change? This big change right now is that the majority of us and people watching your channel are included in that. We're seeking something that we feel greater than ourselves. We feel something really important. We feel like there's a mission. There's something we're supposed to be doing, like some way to serve. And that is truth. So there's at this time this energy that is finally so in such opposition that it feels like it has been stretched so far apart that there's one half of us that are really experiencing hellish realms on earth. That is true, and that's literal, and that's not to say that that's not a difficult experience. The brightest of souls incarnate in the darkest of places to bring light, to create a shift, to change patterns and programs, intergenerational healing. Like, we're doing deep work. And the hardest part is that we feel, like we're exhausted. Like this earth realm is so much because of so many trials, pains, and the things that people do to one another. So the biggest change is where we are no longer accepting of that. Systems around the planet are breaking down. Economic systems, governmental systems, big corporations, like all of that is breaking down because we, the people, are finally as soul saying, I no longer give permission for the power of my soul to be used as an energy source for negative pollution. Okay, that's what we're infused in. So the majority of us are finally able to be like, none of that feels good. Engaging in it doesn't feel good. Watching it, feeling it does not feel good. I want to feel better. So in the difference of these two earths, one of it is very pain driven. Okay, that is that deeper, darker density where all of the pain and atrocities happen in the world. And simultaneously, there are many others who are experiencing and trying to create this heaven on earth. Now, that doesn't mean that the problems all disappear. It means that we begin to find a way to cooperate, collaborate, to unify, and to create something entirely different. Now, that is where systems work together. Our school systems honor our children. We're not fighting our government, and our government's not trying to oppose us or oppress us or suppress us, where we're not doing that to each other by all this judgment. We are the most judgmental species. We look to somebody else and we cannot see ourselves in them. And that's the biggest pain, because we feel separate and alone. But unless we can come to this other part, unity, oneness, wholeness, connection, that the greater part of us is safe, on the other side. We're meant to stream in this connection, a feeling of hope, faith, trust. That's a whole other frequency. And I have been accused of being very weak, because of my compassion and that I'm too nice, and that should not be a bad thing, where it's in this other world, it's about, everyone to each his own, everyone fending for themselves. That is no longer. So that is the biggest difference. So we're going to see in terms of the world, how all of this is breaking down all across the way. So in all systems, so anything that is corrupt and doesn't unify, doesn't bring together a sense of wholeness, we ourselves are choosing by the power of our choice, a different way. And that is the biggest difference. And that is what we're here to create. We have so much power inside of us that we don't even know, but it's used because of these programs, these systems, the economy, the way the world is governed is to elicit and evoke fear and that we're all engaged in that frequency because that's what they desire. That's how they use our energy. We are like powerhouses, nuclear warehouses of power within us. And what we choose to give our attention and emotion, it matters because we're all unified together. It's what I call this conscious net, that we are not separate. Even our own inner thoughts are not private. They stream out into the ethers like bits of information and radio signals. You know, that's just a fact of how we are. So I know I've gone like way out there and kind of back and then out there again, but I hope that answers the question, like begins to attempt to answer that question, because it's one of the most pivotal times. This is why I wanted to return. I wanted to be part of this great shift, but it's not easy because it requires all of us to do that deep inner work first and foremost for ourselves, taking personal responsibility and then responsibility of how we are in the world. That's a lot of work. It goes it against the grain, you know? So when we stand up and choose like to get off the wheel, to not go with the status quo, to be the ones that are not necessarily fighting the system because we're just participating in it, but entirely stepping out of the system and then going for what we really want. That's the difference. So it's not like rather than engaging with it, fighting with it, and it takes still our energy. It's take all that energy, no longer giving it permission to use it, and then use that creative force to create something entirely different. Stepping into like our passion, our purpose, the things that we are most curious about. That's where we're really in a position of power.
It's interesting because I do see a separation in society. And one of the most obvious places to see it is in new media, because there there are a lot of positive things, and hopefully my channel and other channels like mine and what you're doing, we are putting out positive things, and hopefully that's expanding and other people are seeing it and they put out positive things. And then I see the contrast where there's so much negativity and hatred, and you talked about judgment. So it's really interesting to see the divide. But I'm also curious, in addition to us ourselves, seeking out material and things that'll help us grow and learn, is some of it also supernatural? Because I have heard of these solar things or things that will happen to us, and we will get these upgrades to help us move from 3D, which is, in my mind, it's more self-centered, to this 5D society, which we're more one. So is that the case that you're seeing too, some of these supernatural things?
Our sun emits and radiates light, radiation. Okay, our atmosphere of the earth, the electromagnetosphere, helps to alleviate some of that, but it doesn't block all of that energy coming through. So many of us have been experiencing difficulty with our cell phones, cellular communications, internet, because of these massive solar storms. There's a time where like it feels like they're now putting in more structures, infrastructure to be able to handle that magnitude. So yes, it is supernatural in the sense of we are beings that are meant to absorb energy, absorb light, be in partnership with nature. And that includes the cycles of the sun, the cycles of our cosmos, our inner cycles, the cycles of the moon. Everything is very much in balance in nature. We're the only species that isn't. Like if you look at other species of animals, like bears hibernate, turtles know exactly when they're meant to go to a beach to hatch their eggs. How? There is an inner nature attunement. Humans have disconnected from that. We have gone far beyond because we don't follow the cycles of the sun anymore. And even if we try to, our government changes the time on us, right? So then we're forced to in this false time. So we're here to align with all of that. And there is this cosmic energy that is being emitted and streaming new vibrations, that where we have not been able to receive before. It's happened with greater intensity and greater magnitude.
It's still hard for my logical mind to go,
Mm-hmm.
well, is this all going to happen to me? I mean, this is the sun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human. So it's hard logically to make that step and understand that.
Because it's our logical brain that's trying to make sense of it, and logically it can't. So we have to tap into, in that sense, into our right brain, into our intuitive mind. So Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, where she talks about like a stroke of genius, where she had no faculty or use of her left brain. The left brain is where we interpret information. So I'm also a medical support, a clinical hypnotherapist. And in that training, our brain is constantly looking at information, receiving information, and emitting information. Okay. So when we are in our constant state, when you have a new person and you see like through their eyes, through a set of new eyes, they're looking at things in ways that you yourself haven't. How many people, I dare you to drive to work and I force you, I dare people to find something that they have not seen before, and they will be shocked because they're so attuned and on autopilot that they're not aware, right? So we try in our brain to receive all these bits of information, and it's checking in constantly. Does this make sense? Does this check in with me? And it's shooting out what doesn't. So we're missing a ton of bits of information. And this is a perfect example. Okay. So for those that are logic based, because I am too. Okay. I love the science behind it. So our physical eyes are interpreters. Okay. We have these lenses that receive light, but we are not actually seeing what we think we see. Our brain is interpreting it all. So I have these light lenses that receive light. It literally goes through the very center of my brain and crisscrosses. It hits the back of what's called the occipital lobe, and it's upside down. So what we see is entirely different. Our brain is processing what we are seeing, and it's also processing the information coming in. And it's hard for us to believe that we are that powerful. It's hard for us to believe that we are that incredible being that holds something so sacred and so special inside. We search and seek our whole lives for it. And sadly, I've seen so many where they actually cross never having found it because they don't look in the one place that it actually exists, and that's inside. Anybody who is trying to get you to follow a particular way that brings them outside, and the searching somewhere outside is really, it's an injustice, because what we're all trying to do is connect to this, first of all, to ourself. So and you talked about like in this process of self-growth and the woo-woo words out there of like we're getting these upgrades, right? What does any of that mean? It means that in that you hold an energy force within your own self, that if you allow that to open up, can also be a deepening of a knowing thyself, knowing ourselves. So not just seeking these spiritual truths. Okay. Many people dabble into things that they do not understand, and I am in total agreement with it. There's a lot of, people who do study the Bible and say that what I do is like in complete opposition because Deuteronomy says that this is really evil. Well, no, none of that. I agree that if a person does not understand and is not aware of what they're tapping into, they could be dabbling into worlds that they don't understand. And that is like trying to force open without our natural attunement to it. Every single person is intuitive without exception, because every single person carries a soul spark, and intuition is the language of their soul. It is like a way to sense and feel this deeper, more divine part of ourself that is always present, ever guiding. And that is a fact of ourself. It is part of our soul's anatomy, but that part has been taken away from us systematically by the systems. Our parents are tired. They're born to us kids. They don't have the energy. They're out working. We're fending for ourselves. They're not guiding us into this because we don't have mystery schools. We don't have ways of knowing this. And some religions attempt it. And I think it's really, really beautiful that if it creates a sense of community, but may it also create a sense of connection and awe and wonder for life itself.
When it comes to the future, I've had guests on, we've talked about some of the negative things, and we'll probably touch on that. I'll ask you about that coming up. But what are some of the good things that you see coming up for our future?
Well, so our world is a world of duality, okay? And one cannot exist without the other. So again, it goes back to our focus is that if I'm only focused on just the negative, I will only see the negative. But in order for the negative to exist, darkness, whatever you want to call that, it's like, let's call it like the negative side of this energy, okay? Like a battery, okay? But on the opposite end, same battery, we have the positive side. And in order for one to exist, the other also exists. And it depends on where we ourselves focus. And so those two things are simultaneous. And what the good thing is that in this darker, heavier 3D energy, okay, this third density, it's heavy. It feels like heavy gravity. It feels like life doesn't work or flow. In that state, we're feeling opposition. We feel like that we are opposite, we're separate. And so what it causes is pain. And in that world is pain that pushes us to our purpose. And so when we go through this and we have a lot of understanding, self-growth, we go through our periods of self-learning, releasing, healing, whatever that looks like for every person. And then we arrive into a new place of maybe new eyes. I call them soul eyes, that we begin to look at the world differently and think of like, oh, wow, well, there's all this other goodness that I didn't see before. And then we begin to attune to that. And it's not about ignoring one or the other. What I really want to emphasize is like if we open up to not fighting that deeper, darker, heavier part, make peace with it, okay? That's shadow work, okay? That's bringing darkness into the light that creates shadow. So all that shadow work that people, do and engage in, it means where are the pain parts that I'm not familiar with, that I need to bring out. And then we can actually feel light and beauty and goodness. But it's really about being neutral because we're both. We are both. And we're meant to be both as human because if we ignore, deny, suppress, and don't express a part of ourself, then we are not whole. We're looking for wholeness. We're looking for a feeling of complete. And the good thing that's coming out of this is an ability for us it doesn't feel good to be in pain. Let me try to feel better. Okay, this feels better. So then we move towards that. When we tap into that, that is the superpower. Then we can really be in a place of neutrality, be neutral. And that way you're ready and prepared that when something negative comes, you can go into that and work with it and then come back. And then something good and positive happens, you can go into that and feels really good, but still come back. So it's like it's created a way for enough people to know their own radiance, tap into their own light that has created this new opportunity for this new earth. And that's the most exciting part. That's why we're here. That's why the majority of us have taken up the mission to be here against all odds, no matter how hard life may be.
So if you're looking at things coming up in the next 2 years, do you see a lot of big changes coming?
I do. I see a lot of big changes coming. And so here's the other part of it is that simultaneously, right? We're talking about this new earth. We have to understand that we arrive in this new earth with what we created. It's not like we enter in and it's obliterated. we arrive with what we packed. Okay, so now we're unpacking. Okay, and so we have opportunities to be able to create some really amazing things as well, because we don't want to feel the pain of it. So I see the continuation of upheavals in the planet itself, because not only are we getting these solar emissions and this light streaming, but we're also entering into a more condensed and concentrated area within the universe. It's like we're going from like the on-ramp onto a freeway. Okay, so we literally stream into, and we have what's called an area in the universe called the Great Attractor. So this is heightened energy. Big cosmic things are happening, and it's all happening internally and streaming down to us. And so I see that the planet herself also being affected by all of this energy that's happening in the cosmos. So gravity forces, we're at the very, very, very tail end of our Milky Way galaxy. Imagine being on the very end of the whip. Imagine how much energy and force that creates internally. So there's a lot of changes within our solar system that also creates a lot of changes on the planet. So we've already seen them, like natural disasters, some volcanic eruptions. We have had some tsunamis, some earthquakes, all of these different things that have been foretold for a time, and it's still happening. Then I see again where we're talking about systems, governmental systems and educational systems, even monetary. Well, so that's economic, okay? But there's a governmental economic system. Those are entwined. There's supposed to be this separation of state and other, but there isn't. Okay. All of these facades and false narratives that have been created, that have been holding us like, I can't see, are finally being stripped away. So all of the mistruths, the things that were built in the darker energy for purpose of causing harm, are going to break down, while simultaneously those that are here to be the rebuilders, system builders, okay, that we're here to open up into new ways. So new ways of thinking, new ways of feeling. And it requires, this is the hardest part, it's not that we are oblivious to what is happening, okay? It is that we are aware of what is happening, but choosing something different. That we are aware of that what's happening, but we choose to see and visualize something different. Okay, I have a really good example for this, okay? They hide, when I say they, let's just call it these bigger forces of energy, okay? So, but it's hidden in plain sight, knowledge and information, because the most sacred thing on this planet is free will and choice. We have opportunities to, and unless it has been used and taken from us, okay? The majority of us have experienced in some way where our choice and our will has been taken from us. That is coming into the reversal. So we're doing it on minor layers of how do we choose ourselves to be most authentic on a daily basis. And then on the greater scale. Okay, now there's a lot of systems out there, atrocities and like horrific things that humans do to other humans. But that's all part of that system that's going to be broken down. So like any systems that are forcing the taking away of another's light, and that happens even in plain sight every single day, especially because of our economic systems. So again, I went way out there and I'm hoping I can come right back. But so yeah, those are some of the bigger things that are going to happen. But I really want people to know the power that they carry inside. There are those that are meant to be emitters of light and to hold vision, okay? And what I mean by this, so a really good example, sorry, coming back full circle. They hide this information in plain sight. And there is a movie called Tomorrowland. And in the movie Tomorrowland, and I don't want to give it away to everybody, but there's scenes in there that is very, very specific to what's actually happening today. an introduction of AI, that there's the possibility of a future self or another dimensional self extending into this dimension asking for help, and then at the very, very end, it shows that they're streaming, and the girl at the very end realizes if we stop streaming the information, it will actually change the entire outcome. They hide this in plain sight. So I invite whoever cares to watch that, but it's fascinating because, this information is in what I again call the conscious net. It's available. It's like, and we're picking this out, and people who are channeling this information, who are creative, and then writing stories and creating, movies and things that we engage in that are very true to life, real life. All of these magical things that we think like, oh, that's only in the movies. Not so much. Yeah. So again, I go all over the place. I hope, let me come back. Bring me back, Heather.
Maria, I'm so enjoying this conversation, but I do have more questions, and I want to ask you more specifics on particular things that other people have seen and what you think about that. But let's go ahead and take that into part 2.
Okay. Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome. I love having conversations with Maria-Lupita. And I have to tell you, I am recording this now after both interviews. And if you are interested in what's coming up in the future, you are going to be really intrigued by what she talks about in part 2. So do you think there's going to be a big alien event, a big UFO event, something that a lot of us are going to go,
I do see that.
have you been seeing things that will occur that our population is going to drop?
Yes.
The government and the economy, and I have heard people talk about things from whether it was collapse or reorganization. Is this going to be something really hard? I'm trying to figure out if I should ask you another question. So I'll ask you something and we can take it out if you don't want to answer it. Okay, I'm so excited for what you'll find in part 2. But in the meantime, share your thoughts on what she already talked about here. Anything that you want to put, something that stood out to you, something that you agree with, that you're fascinated by. Maybe you want to share something with another audience member, share something with Maria or me. Anything you put there is fabulous. And also, if you just want to say, I made it, that also helps the algorithm. But I do truly enjoy connecting with you, and I do enjoy reading all of your comments. I try to get back to as many of you as I can. Thank you for all your likes and also for subscribing. And thank you for those of you who come looking for me, because you can't really count on YouTube to send me out to you. They start sending you other things. So thank you for always checking back. You can always find a link to all of my episodes in the description. You can also find their links to part 1 and part 2, and you can find all the links to my guest. So always make sure to check that out. Just click on the little word more. That's where you'll find it. Once again, I have to say, please, if you are fascinated by the future, come back for part 2. I truly think you're going to enjoy it. See you there.
Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.